Hi, I'm Royce with Viking Wax Press. Today we're going to review the top 50 players in the UFL. I made today's video to help newcomers to the UFL know which players to watch for this year. If you're unfamiliar with the UFL, this should give you a good overview of the best players in the league. For those brand new to the UFL, the United Football League, it's a spring league comprised of the two best spring pro leagues, the USFL and the XFL, who decided to merge over the offseason in order to get better. Most of the players in the UFL are on the verge of making NFL teams, and I believe everyone on this list has spent time in an NFL camp or on an NFL team. In other words, each of the guys I'm going to mention today are players who are going to get another chance to play in the NFL this coming fall. I've watched every XFL and USFL game since the USFL returned in 2022. I'm familiar with how they play, both statistically and on the field. For example, Reuben Foster didn't put up any spectacular numbers for the Maulers last year, but that's partially due to the offenses going another direction to avoid getting blown up. He's better on the field than he is on paper. All right, are you ready to hear my top 50 players to watch in the USFL this year? Number 1 is Mark Thompson, running back for the Roughnecks. He's the USFL's Offensive Player of the Year last year and my pick to win the first UFL MVP. He's perfect for a team who is unsure who their starting quarterback will be, because all the quarterback will really have to worry about is nailing the handoff. Number 2 is Case Cookus, the Showboats quarterback. He's my favorite quarterback in the UFL. He led the Philadelphia Stars the previous 2 seasons and will lead the Showboats to the playoffs this year. He's an accurate pocket passer with a big arm and good decision-making skills. Most of all, he's unselfish and a positive team leader. At number 3, we have A.J. McCarron, the Battlehawks quarterback. He returns from his second stint with the Cincinnati Bengals to take care of some unfinished business in the UFL. He has a nest of talented receivers to target and will lead the XFL conference in passing yards and TD passes. At number 4, I have DeMarcus Gates. He is returning to the Stallions after 2 seasons with the Chicago Bears. He was dominant with the Stallions in 2022, and he will be the best linebacker in the UFL. Next we have Breland Speaks at number 5. He's a Panthers defensive end. Breland will lead the league in quarterback sacks this year. The best way I could put it is, he's a hungry Rottweiler and the quarterback is a juicy steak. At 6, we have the Renegades quarterback, Luis Perez. He won an XFL championship with the Renegades last year and is the ultimate charisma guy in the locker room. He rallies men to win and backs it up on the field, pure and simple. Number 7 is DC Defenders running back Abram Smith. Abram was the XFL's best running back last year and will do the same for the XFL conference this year. At 8, we have Wes Hills, running back for the Panthers. He played for the New Orleans Breakers last year and had the most yards of any running back in the USFL. Like the Defenders' Abram Smith, Wes has an NFL build and will lead his team in touchdowns and rush yards this year. Number 9 is Pita Tomoopenu. He's a linebacker for the Battlehawks, and he was on the Vegas Vipers last year. He was the XFL's best defensive player. He brings much-needed toughness to the Battlehawks, and I expect him to lead his team and possibly the league in tackles. At number 10, we have Frank Genda, linebacker for the Panthers. The USFL's returning Defensive Player of the Year, Frank spent time on the Atlanta Falcons last season and is back on the prowl for the Panthers this year. At number 11, we have Hakeem Butler, wide receiver for the Battlehawks. Now that his counterpart, Jacure Pearson, is out with an injury, Hakeem is the best wide receiver in the league. His size and strength, coupled with A.J. McCarron's accurate arm, will make this fleet-footed, pass-catching Battlehawk number 1 in the UFL receiving yards by the end of the season. And number 12 is Roughnecks linebacker Reuben Foster. As I mentioned earlier, Reuben owns his area of the field. He can get after passers, brutalize receivers, and crush any running back who tries to cross the line of scrimmage. Don't be surprised at all if you see him back in the NFL this fall. And number 13 is Darius Victor. He's a running back for the Showboats. Darius was a bowling ball the past 2 seasons with the New Jersey Generals, and opposing defenders were his pins. He gives the Showboats the best balanced attack offense of any team in the league, and he could lead the league in yards per carry this year. And number 14 is Delonte Scott, the Brahmas defensive end. He was the best defensive lineman on the best defensive team in the XFL last year. He brings that toughness back to the Brahmas team that should be better on offense this year. Why? This guy. My number 15, Cody Latimer. He's a tight end for the Brahmas, and he came over from the Guardians last year. You may recognize him from his days with the Broncos of the NFL, or you may have watched him with the Guardians last year on an abysmal team where he was the highlight. He carves up the field, can punish after the catch, and has a nose for the end zone. He will excel in the pass-heavy offense Wade Phillips brings to the Brahmas this year. And number 16 is Defenders linebacker Trent Harris. He comes over to the Defenders from the Houston Roughnecks. He had 9.5 sacks in 9 games from the linebacker spot. Are you kidding? Sign me up for that. Showboats linebacker Vontae Diggs comes in at 17. He's a personal favorite of mine, and he's an underrated linebacker who was the vocal leader of the New Orleans Breakers the past 2 seasons. He brings his swagger to an already tough Showboats defense. And number 18 is Defenders quarterback Jordan Ta'amu. He was 2 quarters away from leading his team to the XFL championship last year, and after a stint with the Minnesota Vikings last fall, he returns to an improved DC team that has a great chance to hoist the championship trophy this year. And number 19 is Keontae Shad. He's a defensive end for the Roughnecks. He is one of many top-tiered defensive linemen on the Roughnecks team. He crushed it in 6 games for the Breakers last year and was called out by Coach Curtis Johnson as someone to watch on the defensive line this year. The Roughnecks D-line in general will be the best in the UFL, so watch Roughnecks games if you want to see sacks and forced fumbles. And number 20, DJ Daniel is a cornerback who comes from the Showboats after a standout year for the Generals last year. He's my top-rated defensive back, and he'll shore up a solid Memphis secondary. And number 21, Davin Bellamy, Defenders edge rusher, was great for the Breakers in 2022 and even better for the Defenders last year during their 9-1 season. He'll lead the Defenders. And number 22 is Olive Sagapolu. Olive is a defensive tackle and another top 5 guy at his position on the Roughnecks. He messed up offensive lines on the way to the championship game for the Pittsburgh Maulers last year. And number 23 is Showboat Jonathan J. Adams. He's my second-rated receiver in the UFL based on his growth potential and Case Cookis' ability to complete passes. Watch as he grows into the league leader in acrobatic grabs. Jace Sternberger comes in at 24. He's a tight end who tried out for the Bills last year and is back with coach Skip Holtz for another season on the deepest team in the league, the Birmingham Stallions. At number 25 is Tini Adewusi, a cornerback for the Renegades. He's back on the Renegades for a second try after spending a year on the Brahmas. He should be a top 5 defensive back in the league and the best defender on the Renegades. Sage Surratt, tight end for the Showboats, is number 26. He's the brother of New York Jet Chaz Surratt. Sage was among the top tight ends in the USFL last year, and his stellar growth curve from 22 to 23 gives me hope that he can do the same for the Showboats this year. Coming in at number 27 is Anthony McFarland Jr., Brahma's running back. Even though McFarland hasn't played an official regular season snap in the UFL, I watched him rip up teams in the NFL last preseason, and he played in the regular season Steelers games too. His style of play should translate into a top running back in the UFL. His name may sound familiar because his dad, Booger McFarland, is a former Buccaneer great and current NFL broadcaster. Tight end Sal Cannella is number 28. He was instrumental in netting the XFL championship win for the Renegades last year, and he was my top-rated tight end the year before on the Breakers of the USFL. The automatic outlet for Luis Perez. Watch Sal surprise all Renegades naysayers. Number 29 is Chris Orr, Stallions linebacker. Chris proved he could be an all-league player by recording 82 tackles and 2.5 sacks in 9 games for the Generals last year. He moves over to the Stallions, and I think he's the reason fan favorite Scooby Wright will probably come off the bench this year. At number 30, Kiava Tazzino is another linebacker grabbed by the Stallions. He played a bit for the 49ers last season after 2 stellar seasons with the USFL's Maulers. With Marquise Gates, Chris Orr, Tazzino, and Scooby Wright, this Stallions linebacker core is the best in the league. At number 31, Jerron Jones, tackle for the Showboats, is the only offensive lineman to make 2 all-league teams over the past 2 springs. He'll make sure Case Cookus stays clean for the Showboats. At number 32, Renegades center Jake Lucina was the anchor on the offensive line for the Generals the past 2 seasons, and was a big reason that team had the most rushing yards in the USFL over the course of those 2 years. Another ex-New Jersey General comes in at number 33. Roughnecks defensive tackle Toby Johnson is a massive threat to break through the middle and impede the progress of any UFL offense. Watch for his size alone if you want. Just be sure to watch him. At number 34, defensive end Tim Ward is another roughneck turned DC defender. He was a defensive team leader for Houston last year with 5 sacks, and he should lift the DC defenders' defense up to the level of their offense. At number 35, cornerback Mark Gilbert comes over from the Maulers to try and be the best DB on a super deep Stallions secondary. Wide receiver Marcel Aitman comes in at 36. He's a former Raider, and he comes back from injury last year to a Battlehawks team loaded on offense. If McCarron doesn't target Hakeem Butler, he'll have an open Aitman among his options. At number 37 is Battlehawks defensive tackle Austin Fayolu. This former Oregon Duck comes off an all-XFL season with the Seattle Sea Dragons and will start in the middle of the Battlehawks D-line. Roughnecks defensive end Adam Rodriguez comes in at number 38. He was the best D lineman on the Philadelphia Stars last year and brings speed to the Roughnecks' number 1 defensive line. He is a sack machine. At number 39, Stallions defensive tackle Willie Yarberry consistently stuffed the middle for the Stallions during the previous 2 championship runs. I have no reason to think that will change. At number 40 is Deion Kane. He was all USFL last year and was the championship game MVP. Stallions running back CJ Marable comes in at number 41. He's an underrated running back who quietly rushed for almost 1,000 yards in 20 games on his way to 2 championships for the Stallions over the last 2 years. If he can average 4.4 yards a carry again like he did last year, maybe people will start to pay attention. Number 42 on my list is Chris Odom, Roughnecks defensive end. Chris comes back to spring football after a year in the NFL. He was the USFL's Defensive Player of the Year in 2022, but then he got injured playing for the Cleveland Browns. If he can return to form, he will dominate in the UFL. Showboats defensive tackle John Atkins Sr. comes in at number 43. He's a big bruiser in the middle for a Showboats defensive line, and he was a play wrecker who I loved to watch. Check him out when you watch the Showboats winning games this year. Next up is Renegades linebacker Donald Payne coming in at number 44. I first noticed Payne when he played for the USFL's Gamblers in 2022. He plays like a jackhammer breaking holes in the offense. He helped the Renegades get to the XFL championship win last year. At 45, we have strong safety Quinterio Cole. Cole was the best defensive back on the Sea Dragons last year and made the All-XFL team. He should start and impress for the Battlehawks this year. In the 47th spot, we have Bryson Aline, Brahma's running back. Bryson is a firecracker, spitfire, spark, rocket, whatever analogy you want to use for small, speedy, and elusive. Coupled with McFarland, the Brahmas have a nice 1-2 punch at running back. Number 48. Showboats defensive end Jeff McCulloch has been a top defensive lineman in the USFL for the past 2 years for the Bandits and the Showboats. He brings his veteran presence back to the Showboats this year. Number 49. Panthers linebacker Gerard Fernandez started with the Breakers last year and played Hutch to Vontae Diggs' Starsky, and he will do the same when Frank Ginda puts on his Starsky stash this year. Topping off my top 50 is kicker Matt Coughlin for the Showboats. I'd be remiss if I didn't include a kicker on my list. I mean, kickers are consistently among the top scorers in the league, but we rarely talk about them. Matt is the most accurate kicker in the UFL and probably will end the season with the most points in the UFL's inaugural season. These next few guys get honorable mention because they will also challenge for the best players in the league at their position. Stallions safety JoJo Tillery is another guy with 2 Stallions championship rings and will continue to fly all over the secondary, breaking up passes for the Birmingham Stallions. Wide receiver Blake Jackson should be able to contribute yards in large chunks for the Battlehawks like he did last year for the Sea Dragons. Punter Marquette King for the Renegades should challenge Stallions Colby Wadman for the top punter in the league this year. Roughnecks safety Manny Bunch is another guy who you need to know about. He made the All-USFL team on the Gamblers last year and should lead the Roughnecks secondary this year. Wayne Gallman should start at running back for the Battlehawks if he can prove he can run like he did for the New York Giants a few years ago. But can he shake off the rust? Running back Trey Williams joins Darius Victor in the Showboats offensive backfield. The two were on the Generals together the previous 2 seasons, where they consistently pushed their team toward the top of the rush yards chart. They could be even better on a team with a balanced passing attack like the Showboats have this year. I am totally stoked to watch some UFL. How about you? What do you think of my list? Give me a comment on the guys you think I overlooked. Tell me what team you're looking most forward to watching. You may have seen some of my other videos going over some of the preseason UFL power rankings. If not, you can find them in the comments below. Please click that thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel for future football content. That's all for today. This has been Royce with Viking Wax Press. God is good, y'all. Take care. He can get after pastors. Pastors? Leave the pastors alone, Reuben.